Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are sorry we're a little late, and we did have to go on another. Are we going live?
I hope so.
My volume is not. It's not up on the headphones.
Turn it up.
All right. Well, we are here. It has been a crazy one today, and clearly it's a little bumpy getting live. But we're glad that you're here. I guess mostly we're glad we're here right now.
Yes.
It's like, man, it's been a lot to get us to this point, but it's going to be great. So I want to remind everybody, all of our friends that are out there, you are listening, hopefully, on the new broadcast that we just had to launch for the Live It Out live stream with John and Jennifer Garrick. This is a place where we discuss everyday life as believers of Jesus Christ. We strive to give you relatable content so that you'll be encouraged in your ability to live out the gospel where you live, work, and play. We're just keeping it real, not fancy, just discussing together. It's a conversation. And we look forward to connecting with you live tonight, just dialoguing just like we do each week. And so welcome back to those that have been here before. And for those that may be coming across us for the first time, you're watching us on either Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And hopefully they're all those. Have we checked, by the way? Have we got that all going out? Have we checked to make sure
Everything
YouTube and everything?
Seems to be going.
Great.
So,
all right. Well,
keep our fingers crossed.
That's right. We're going to count on our friends out there then to just send in messages, thumbs up, whatever, just to let us know that it's coming through. Yeah. And then, of course, some don't watch live. They watch on the restream because they got other things going during this time slot, and they watch later. So we'll look forward to those comments as well. Always comment even after the fact, because we love being able to dialogue with you and hearing your comments.
Yeah, so we welcome you to join our conversation tonight with your thoughts and your questions. Always, you're part of this show. It's not all about John and Jennifer. We want to hear from you. So send in those questions. Tonight is a fun topic, I think, that everyone can relate to. We're going to be talking about the holidays and dealing with the stresses leading up to it.
Families and how stressful they are. As a matter of fact, look at that. I see my mother-in-law has just come on right now. It says, glad you're there. She's here, so she's going to listen in on how stressful holidays are with families.
We just had a wonderful time with our family.
Yeah, we did.
Over Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
so
it was pretty awesome.
I'm pretty grateful for that. And so anyway, we're glad to have you joining us tonight. And so think about those questions you might have for us or for our guest, Maxine, that we're going to introduce to you in just a little bit. But before, we'll dive into some highlights. Huh?
Yeah, some highlights. Quick highlights for Eternal Impact. All of you probably know, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you right now that this episode and our life is sponsored by Eternal Impact. We are missionaries with Eternal Impact, and it's because of the generosity of our patrons and friends who support us to do that. So year-end time is crucial for most nonprofits in the U.S. A large portion of their yearly budget is raised during the end of the year, almost a majority of the budget. And so Eternal Impact's no exception. So perhaps you didn't take advantage of Giving Tuesday. Well, hey, there's still time. It's Giving Tuesday week. But we encourage you to visit the website and help support as we support Christian leaders to rest, to be getting their care they need, and encouragement that they need to stay strong and healthy. And so if you don't know already, the newsletter has been out. It came out today. Matter of fact, I think the email end of the year letter literally went out an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, this afternoon.
Yeah, I think it's hitting people's inbox now. And those that are part of our patrons, they already have one that went in the mail a couple days ago. So it's probably there.
You'll be getting it in the mail.
Yeah. So anyway, all you got to do, friends, is do what? Go where?
Just go to our website at eternalimpact.org. Everything you need to know, you can find right there.
Yeah, that'd be great. And you can sign up if you're not getting the newsletter. All you got to do is sign up. It's pretty easy. Just click the newsletter spot and sign up. It'll be great, and we'll make sure to get stuff to you all the time. So if you didn't get something in your email inbox today that's telling you what's going on, hey, I can't help you because you didn't sign up. So anyway, sign up, and that would be great. Appreciate it.
We hope that you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving last Thursday. We didn't do our live stream because we wanted to leave lots of time for you guys to be with your family like we were. We did a little Christmas celebration early too because next week we are going to be in the air flying to New Zealand for the holidays. And so
Literally. I mean, the
Literally.
night, like right
Yeah.
now, we're going to be
we're going to
over
be
the Pacific Ocean.
somewhere over the rainbow.
I hope so.
And so that said, we won't be having our show next week, but we will get to go see Leslie and Soli. Yay!
Yes, and
It's
for
only
those,
been like 3.5 years.
it's so crazy. And those that don't know, because not everyone knows, some people are, distant friends out
Right.
there and followers. Leslie and Soli are our daughter and son-in-law, one of them, and they live in Christchurch, New Zealand. So
Yep.
super excited to be with them. And in regards to that, just so people know, we will not be next week, but the following week, we will be live from New Zealand. Same time. It'll be a different time for us, of course, there. We'll be a day ahead, but we'll let you know how the future is. And
Yeah.
we will be live the following. So 2 nights from tonight, we'll
That's
be live.
December 15th.
Yep, December 15th.
We will
It's going to be great.
live from New Zealand. We have a guest.
But we're not going to tell you who the
and
guest is
it's a
yet.
surprise.
Surprise. Okay, so it's coming, but it is a New Zealand guest.
And in case you didn't know, it's summertime in New Zealand. So I'm out of this icky weather in Oregon, and we're going to get back to the sunshine again.
It's been so cold. Those that know, we were in Hawaii recently, and coming back to the rain
It's
and the
been
cold
hard,
is
yeah.
eek, a little crazy. But anyway, so that's what we got going, and thanks for telling about New Zealand, and don't show up next week, but this week. Now, I want to remind people that we did have to come up with a new show tonight, in the sense that we had an event scheduled on Facebook and YouTube. But the technology that we're using, a company called Restream, I'm just going to call them out. They are not doing well at getting. We went to go live, and they had some technical error and gave us an error and wouldn't let us. We tried to go back. They wouldn't let us. So we had to come up with a new show. Maxine, our guest, was so gracious and said, hey, we're going to reboot everything. And we did a whole new scheduled of a show, and we got back on there. So we apologize for those technical glitches. Some of them we can't do anything about, but that's the way it is. So I want to encourage you tonight that you're going to be given comments. You'll hear us remind you of that. And that whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Facebook, in our technology, if it's all working, we're seeing your message come through. And you saw a minute ago, I put in there Rebecca's, comment that came up, and we can put questions and comments throughout the night. We had a lot of them last week. So if you have questions, just put a Q on there, a Q colon or question colon, and so that we'll know that's a question directed to Maxine when we introduce her, or for ourselves as we're just dialoguing and hanging out together. Okay, so every night we do a little flashback. Flashback, we look to the previous week, and we say, or the previous episode, and we just pull something out, a nugget, a little gem that's like, man, this is something that really God was speaking to us about during that time. And so we did that this week. And last week, you'll remember that we talked with Kari Patterson. She's the author of Sacred Mundane. Yeah, it was. It was a good time. And we just had a great conversation like we're going to have tonight with Maxine. And one of the things that I was reminded of, she quoted one of our spiritual fathers, Brother Lawrence. And Brother Lawrence had a practice called common business. And no matter how mundane or routine was a medium of God's love. That is the important thing that he would say. No matter how mundane or routine the thing that you're doing was, it was a medium of God's love. In other words, God uses everything in our life. It's so in our culture, and especially in the Western world, man, we really want to, it's about success, it's about doing, it's about achieving, it's about all those measures. And the reality is sometimes we can get caught up, and it's like, man, God's only wanting us to do the big things, whatever big is. And the reality is that a triune God who is motivated by love, he wants to be with us all the time. So whether we're walking in the woods, whether we're in an executive board meeting, whether we are in a patrol car or in a classroom or in our living room or hanging out on a live stream, the Spirit of God wants to work in us. And whether we're doing dishes or whatever it is, those things may seem mundane, but last week we were reminded on the show that, God breathes life into all of those things. Mm-hmm. And there's a quote that Brother Lawrence had, and she quoted, Kari quoted Brother Lawrence in her book as well, The Sacred Mundane. And he said this once, he said, "It is enough for me to pick up a straw from the ground for the love of God. And, you know, he really meant that, you know, everything that we do, when we start capturing a reality for our lives, that everything that we're doing can be as an offering, as a service to God, that changes the paradigm, right? I mean, it just changes everything. And so that's our flashback for this week. We just want you to be thinking about that. It's like, what during this holiday season, in the hustle and the bustle and all the things that are happening, what are some of the mundane things that we can say, you know, I want God to breathe life into that. And I want to see this as an act of God's grace and love as I'm serving and as I'm doing that. So even if it's a mom or dad changing a diaper or, you know, whatever it is, it's like, you know,
there's
God,
meaning in all of it.
That's right. And there is sacredness, a divinity in the mundane when we let God breathe life into it. So that's the flashback for this week, and something for us to remember as we head into for most people, pretty busy season.
For sure.
Well, tonight we are pretty excited to be able to introduce you to our friend Maxine. And this topic tonight we picked as family fun or family freak out. And for us, Jennifer and I are pretty fortunate. We have a beautiful family and an extended family, but the reality is we're also human. We also have our own, you know, foibles and challenges and insecurities and inconsistencies.
We're not perfect.
Well, you know,
we got pretty close.
Yeah. But no, not at all. And the reality is that there are times when we've had to navigate some very difficult times. We've welcomed many, many times over 32 years of marriage, and we dated for 4 years too. So even you coming into my family, which had a totally different culture, than yours, and vice versa. Yeah. It really was an opportunity to be giving grace and to discover and to learn. But we have navigated with a lot of people, and it's really challenging sometimes during the season. So the holidays can bring an assortment of emotions ranging from bliss to breakdown. You know, this week, that's why we're welcoming our friend, author, and life coach, Maxine Marsolini, to discuss navigating the sometimes awkward family dynamics and stress that can accompany the most wonderful time of the year. Maxine has several books, one of them being Blended Families, which, by the way, I just found out tonight, and talking with her in the green room about it, that Moody has been publishing that book for 20 years, is no longer publishing the paper version. She does have copies. You have to contact her through her website, which we'll get you later. But they are going to be continuing the publication through an ebook. And it's a great resource. I mean, remember when it came out, it was like, for me, when her and Charlie at the time, her previous husband who passed away several years ago, when they first brought this book out, it was just so helpful. So anyway, we'll get more into that on there, but her personal and professional experience offers insight into the subject of family dynamics and learning how to blend families during the holiday season while learning how to love and serve your extended family like Jesus. And so we just want to say a big welcome to Maxine, and I'm hoping that I'm gonna bring her in here and do it so well, because I think she's there.
Hi, Maxine.
Oh,
Yay.
Maxine, so happy. So happy.
Okay, turn the right way there.
You got it. Well, we remind our listeners and viewers as well as you, we are just hanging at the table, just enjoying. And sometimes when we're with such amazing people like Maxine and professionals and these famous people, you know, we can kind of feel like, oh man, we got to have it all dialed in. But the truth is, we're just hanging out like followers of Jesus and just learning what it means to grow in Him tonight. So it's great having you. It really is fun.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here and be your guest tonight. There's nothing I like talking about better than families and family times and helping to build harmony within families. So.
Yeah. Well, you know, give a little background. Give a little background on that, because I could do it because I just admire you so much and know your background. But share a little bit about, you know, how long you've been married, this time, a little bit of your family dynamic. Share about that. Give a little background.
Well, this time, my Charlie, as you mentioned, has been gone over 10 years now, 10 and a half years.
Hard to believe.
And I have remarried Jerry, and we've been married it'll be 8 years in January. So
Wow.
it's been one blended family. Charlie and I were a blended family, and we both came from divorced families. And there's been a lot of brokenness that we needed to walk into and try to learn how to navigate. And those early years were terrible. The brokenness was getting the best of us. So I became a student of relationships, so to speak, wisdom born of pain, because we needed it for our family. And then God moved it out and used it in the lives of other people too. I would have never actually planned on being in a position I am today or became back then, because it wasn't ever on something I dreamed of doing. But God opened doors and God brought people to me, and eventually Charlie became the pastor, and we even led a church, and relationships just became something that I enjoyed working with, and people seemed to gain some form of hope and encouragement from what we went through and what we had to say about it. And because I went on that giant learning curve, I'm able to share that with other people today.
Yeah, I love the way the Lord uses our brokenness to bring encouragement to others. Nothing is wasted, is it?
No, no. And there's roads, that song, The Broken Road. It's really true.
It is.
Light northern lights that lead us to him, so to speak.
That's
It's
good.
wonderful, really. It's really wonderful how he doesn't waste those things, and he puts you through them so you can comfort others.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, amen to that. It's so good.
Yeah.
I just want to affirm, publicly here as we're talking to, we were reflecting just briefly ahead before we went live, and it's been over 20 years since we first met you and were connected, and I was so many hours of influence on my life by both you and Charlie, your previous husband. And to this day, I'll find myself, quoting you guys about something. And I've used your resources, of course, as well. But it's beyond the resources. It's really the life relationship. And I just want you to know how beautiful it is to see Christ breathe through you over the years. And, I was at Charlie's funeral and I was at your and Jerry's wedding, and both were beautiful.
Yeah.
Both were beautiful because they were able to celebrate the beauty of a triune God that breathes life into people and takes our brokenness and our foolishness and our craziness, and he makes something amazing. And so just as you and Jennifer were talking, I just couldn't help but just want to say, man, I've seen it, not just in your writings and your professional and work, but really in your life. And that's what makes this time so special and meaningful for us and for the listener as well. They need to hear, you all need to know, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Maxine, not just because of her writing, but just because of her as a person. So,
Oh, thank you. I really enjoy interacting with others and helping them make that next best step forward. And until I met Christ, I didn't know that next best step. But after I met him and I took him at his word and I claimed those promises for me, I was able to act upon them. And life got better. Life got better. It was amazing. It wasn't instantaneous, but God moved in my life, which then moved in Charlie's life, which moved in our children's lives, which moved in the body of the church. And it just continued to make that forward march. And I've not gone back and don't intend to ever do that, because there's no better way to live than be under the spout where the blessings pour out.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
It's a good place
An
to
old
be.
phrase with a
Yes.
consistent and tangible reminder for us now. So that's really cool. Well, do this. Share with the listeners a little bit about what God's doing in this season of your life. Because like all of us, our ministries, go through seasons. I know even Eternal Impact's getting ready to do some major pivots during this time as we're empty nesters and things are changing in our lives. And so Eternal Impact is making some big shifts. But for you, right now you're doing Rebuilding Families. So talk about Rebuilding Families a little bit. Because you've got a lot of resources, and we'll share the website and get all that. But everything from, talks on money and books on resources and stewardship and finances to other books on family and, Drinking Deep Because of Love, Mom's Fury, which came out a few years ago. So talk a little bit about that and what God's got you doing right now. And then we're going to get into some questions.
Well, God is just the Rebuilding Families became the name that I branded for the website because we were broken. We needed to rebuild. We didn't have a foundational truth of God to fall back on. So we needed to rebuild. And the passage out of Isaiah where it says, you will become, rebuilders of streets to dwell in and repairers of the broken places in your lives. And so as we took that to heart, as I took that to heart, God started moving it forward, and therefore the Rebuilding Families became the branded logo for the website and for a lot of the work I did. And on that site, there are my books that you just mentioned a few of those. And all of them, the subject matter really is the love of God and the love of family and how to make those walk together hand in hand better each day with your families. This won't be easy. People have different personalities and things like that. But if we stay the course and we continue with trying, we don't give up, we will reach our destination, which is going to be the happier family that God intended us to have in the first place. Problem is we have to let people have their space to find their way of navigating that too. And not all of my family walks closely with the Lord. And when they don't, that becomes a bigger problem. To the one who does walk closer with the Lord needs to be the one who offers the grace forward and gives room for that growth to take place.
It's good.
So,
Very good. Very good.
But on the website, you can find a spot to sign up for the blog. You can find a spot to sign up for the MailChimp and find all sorts of resources like you've mentioned.
Great. Well, let me just remind people right now what that is too. That's rebuildingfamilies.net. So www.rebuildingfamilies.net. It's on the screen. And that way and we'll put it up again, but just so people know, that's how they can connect with Maxine, as well as the resources that she has provided. And she's done a great job. You've always done a good job at disseminating information and bringing it together and making it available out there for others. So, I need to be mentored in that by people like you. You did a great job. So let me ask this. We hadn't really talking about this, so we've got other questions we want to get into. But Maxine, on a personal, I know, Jerry's not been healthy right now. You just were sharing with us about that. What in this season, just in the last few months, what's the Lord speaking to you about? What's he saying to you?
Yeah, there are some changes out there on the horizon with me. And one of the larger ones is there was a step down of the president from the Oregon Christian Writers. And she had served 3 terms, which was the maximum you could serve. I served that position prior to her for 4 years. And so as a result of that, there was no one to step into her position when she needed to step out. That the bylaws had pretty strict guidelines for who could actually fill that slot. And the Lord nudged me and he says, I think you need to step back in there for an interim period. So I have done that, and that's one of the roles I'm playing right now.
Wow.
Now,
that's big. I mean, people don't realize too, and I know this, but others that are listening to it, that Maxine is an influencer of other writers, and she's, as a part of this association and others, has just been able to love and encourage and mentor a lot of writers that are writing out there. And so anyway, I think that's great, but keep going. What else is the Lord stirring in you right now?
That's one of the things that's come about. The other, one of the others is a year ago, I had stepped out of Bible study leadership with women for a great period of time. And I felt a year ago, God was nudging me to go back into leading other women in the church groups and taking a group on again. So I am doing that with the help of a co-leader. And there are several groups running, but I'm having a wonderful time with these ladies, and we sort of feed off of each other, and I get energized. They do too. And it's more about being the gospel on the ground.
That's so what we're doing.
And it's really, really been good for me to jump back in that. So it's encouraging to me, but that also means I need to be gone and I need to prepare and go to that. And then meanwhile, my husband has had several serious illness bouts over the last year and a half, and hospitalizations and different things that have taken place. And he's in the midst of one of those right now. And I just say, Lord, you know where I'm at. You know what you've asked me to do, and I'm trying to keep in step. But right now, there's a committee trying to find a president who will move me out of interim.
Yeah.
So I'm just feel that I'm just there for seasons of time in different ways right now, and I'm flexible. I've always said, you hold your hands open to the Lord and say, use me, and then you hear his voice, and then it's up to you to walk into that. And that can be with our families, it can be with groups of people, it can be with leadership. You two are a marvelous example of putting your hands out and letting the Lord use you around the world, and in the community. So it's just a matter of, it's Christ in me that's working things out. It's not me, because in my power, I just, go sit in a beach chair somewhere.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think I'm seeing now why I wanted to ask the question, and that because we've been dealing not only in our own lives, but with a lot of people that are in seasonal changes in their life. I think even COVID, I was working with several leaders this last week. I was with a meeting yesterday with a key leader that, was even telling me, said, John, if you would have challenged me or about what we were talking about 4 years ago, I wouldn't even be able to receive it. I would not even be able to receive it, because what COVID did for me is it made me have to take a look at my own spiritual formation and my own journey. And this is a spiritual leader. And he was saying that, God's just been speaking to me so much about the season that we're in and the changing in my life. And so I just can't help but even connect the dots from that conversation to what you're even saying. And you two are a great example, because I won't tell anyone your age unless you want them to, but you don't believe in retirement. There's no retirement, there's redeployment.
Yeah, we get redeployed.
Right?
I think that's more what it is, because I'm hoping a few younger ones come up behind me, though, to want to take on the deployment.
Yes. Well, others do need deployed as well. Yeah, need deployed. Yeah. But I think it's interesting. I had a friend that was in his late 70s, and he told me once, he said, I can do anything I could do when I was 40, but I do it slower and smarter. so we do need those, Yeah, we need those people. And so anyway, I just appreciate the fact that you're speaking about, you're testifying, really. We haven't even got into the questions about holidays, which we're going to do right now. But I will say that it does tie in, because even when we're getting together with families, even we were doing that even last week with our, mom and dad and others, it's like talking about the different seasons that we're in and what is the Spirit of God calling us to. And with that, there's a releasing of things. Yeah. There's a grabbing hold of a freshness of what God wants for the next season. And that can be difficult, just like the holidays are difficult, right? Because they bring in this level of anxiety, and especially if we've got personalities that want either control, or we want things to be normal, or we just want that consistency.
And what's normal?
Yeah, and what's normal
is what
anymore.
I think is normal.
Yeah, that's right. So think about that. Let's kind of make a switch a little bit and tie it into this idea of, here we are in, for most people, one of the busiest times of the year, from Thanksgiving to Christmas in our culture. And not only busy, like more things going, more expectations, but also a lot, that connection with family. And usually it's extended family, not just your immediate family. And so not only in your local home, those kind of tensions are kind of rising, but then it's all, we're getting together with those people we haven't seen in a while, or, do we love them? Do we not? All that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so anyway, think about that, Christmas. What do you think on that one, honey?
I think one of the first things that comes to my mind as we approach the season is around expectations, and what we need to do to prepare ourselves mentally and physically for these events that are coming up. Maybe share a little, Maxine, about expectations and how we can start in a healthy mindset, even, just coming into the season.
Well, I think, number one, we all have to realize we have expectations, and the people we live with won't have the same list of expectations that we do. So the planning ahead, the talking about it, sitting down at a table and saying, what do you expect the season to look like? What is the reality of what we can do and what we cannot do? And lower that expectation bar instead of fighting it. And John, you brought up a very interesting word, which was control. Some of us have very controlling natures, and it's my way or the highway, and that doesn't work in family life, quite honestly.
I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Oh.
We don't know anything about that, Maxine.
Yeah, I don't either, but
Right, sure. Go ahead,
Yeah.
keep going.
We're all kind of, we do like things to go a way that we think is our normal, our traditional, we've always done it this way kind of thing.
Right.
Be open. And with the blended family situation in particular, there's so many of us who have extended parents involved in our children's lives, extended step parents involved in our children's lives. When we start alienating parents, we harm our child. We take the happy out of Christmas. And that's not good for the child, and it's not going to help them navigate life and learn how to be communicating and enjoying their childhood and to share. I guess I call our family shareware. It sounds funny, but we are. I mean, even in our married families, my daughter goes to her husband's family for part of the holiday. My other daughter lives in Spain. We can't get together every holiday. My son's in Seattle. His wife's got a family. The children have multiple grandparents, and some of them have multiple upon multiple upon multiple. But if those people are safe people and they are sharing love, let your child receive that. Some people get in the way and they say, no, it's mine. You're not going there. You're not going to be part of that. I don't like it. But it's not whether you as a parent like it, if it's safe. And genetically, those children are tied to the other side of their genetic code. Put it that way. Whether you divorce, no matter whether you never married to start with, which is the case today in a lot of them, and then families fall apart. You need to learn to be amicable in that space. And I find the holidays are one of the most difficult time for people to manage that with happy faces on. Mm-hmm. And that's harmful, and it ruins Christmas, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. Well, and I want to remind our listeners and viewers as well, and if you're on the Restream, you can send us a note to this later, but all of us come from different backgrounds, and we want to welcome you to the conversation and know that some of us are from split families. Some of us are from blended families. Some of us are single and have been in multiple families. Some of us are in situations right now where we feel familyless, right? We've been in contact with several people that they've been divorced, and there's so much tension and there's so much happening. I can think of one situation where that's it, and they don't even know what Christmas or the holidays or anything would look like because they don't feel like they have a connection to any of their family. Right. And they feel like now they're closer to some friends and colleagues at work, that are working as a family for them. But I just want to welcome everybody to that conversation. Right. If you do have specific comments, you're safe to ask them or to make those comments. We just want to remind you of that. And you said something in here that I thought was really interesting. You talked about verbalizing expectations. Mm-hmm. When we know communication is one of the main things, communication and money, and often around those two that are the tension points for most marriages, okay, statistically. Give an example, Maxine, because it's really good, of what that would look like to if a husband or wife is listening to this and going, okay, how do I approach, if we're struggling with communication, how do I approach the expectation conversation, right? Because that's a difficult one, and it's important. It's so vital. So I think managing those expectations, and you talked about verbalizing. Give an example, maybe, if you don't mind, of like what that would be like.
Okay. All right. To verbalize something, if you can't say it out loud, what if you were to put some paper on the table and each one write one down and put it in a bowl? Then you bring them out and you read them, and each one pick out somebody else's and read it out loud. It's kind of like that game where you take the shoe of the other person and you put that shoe on you, or you hold it and try to be in their shoes. Try to hold that paper and visualize why that child really wants to go snowboarding over the holiday. realize why the other one wants maybe a musical instrument to play or music lessons. Listen to what they're having to say, because when we can do that, and instead of just going to, I grew up in a household where you bring things up and pretty much the answer was no, you were not going to be able to do it. It wasn't even entertained. So we became children who were not really having a voice in our home per se. And out of that, you learn to be shut down. So you don't want your children to get shut down, but if they can find a way to safely verbalize what they want, if your spouse, one of you may want to go to, to a holiday thing, like say the singing Christmas tree. One of you may hate those kind of things. But when Charlie was alive, he liked sporting events. I liked theaters. We decided to merge those things together. He'd go with me, I'd go with him, and we brought those two things into our lives. Now, when you have other family members, you need to entertain what they like as well. And so if we can get it out on the table, then we can find ways to say, okay, I know you're interested in this, but when can we do it and how can we do it? And we want to see it fulfilled, but we may have to wait until January.
That's good.
Sometimes it's money that gets in the way. Some of these things cost money.
Right.
And even that, you can do the same thing. That could come out in the bowl of the notes, the note soup, that we make, because when you pull that out there, that comes about. It's like, oh, finances is the expectation I have higher expectations than we have available, or whatever that would be. So anyway, that's good. No, I like that a lot. Thank you for that. And thank you for bringing up the fact of the memories of me going to the Blazer games with Charlie, because I always enjoyed that. But now I'm feeling a little bitter because I don't think Maxine ever took me to the opera. I mean, it's like now I'm feeling left out. But all right, no, very exciting, very exciting. So let me ask this. You talked about alienation in there, and I know we've got other questions that are coming up, but what are ways that, because it came to me that it might not even be a blended family, it could even happen with in-laws, right?
Oh, yeah.
To where, like, we're new grandparents, right? We're new grandparents. And you could let jealousy or things come in to the situation, like, well, are they spending more time with that grandparent than with me, or vice versa? And what you said there about letting them receive love from safe family members. And I just think that, any other comments you have on that? Because that's what I was thinking of, just in regards with in-laws and that too. It doesn't even have to be a blended situation. It's just,
no, it doesn't.
Family.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. It doesn't have to be blended at all, because a lot of, I think years ago, what gave me the most hope was that bio families, we'll just call them that way.
Yeah.
They had similar problems.
Yeah, right.
Which in some odd way gave me a lot of encouragement.
Yeah.
Terrible thing to say, but it's true. And so I didn't want them going through it, but I knew I was going through some of those kind of things. So
that's good.
Any family can go through this stuff. I have families I know right now who they like one member of the family, they don't like the other. It's not that the people aren't safe, but they just don't want them as part of their lives. So they just don't let them in. And it's hurtful. And then others try to control that and force that person to maybe change their mind. And that doesn't work either. We cannot change the behavior of others. We can change our behavior to maybe be influential in the lives of others. But if we shut down our love toward them, it will not.
Can't go anywhere
It
with
will
that.
shut them down. It will shut them down. They will feel thrown away, basically.
Yeah.
And we don't want that.
No.
That's good. And as we walk in the ways of Jesus, we're always reminded of how his example to us is even how he wants us not just to live our life in the marketplace or the church, but in our families. And Jesus, when you're talking about that, I can't help but just think, man, just the disciples, just the relationship he had so intimately with these different people. I was reading this last week in the Gospel of John, and it's like just the difference of the calling of John, or Peter. And these guys, like, they're fishermen. Have you ever gutted fish? I mean, they stink.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, he didn't like it. And so you bring in these guys, and then you got like a Matthew that was from, clearly he's a tax collector, so he's like a higher end. This guy had some bank, and so he didn't smell like a fish, right? And so they're so different, and they had challenges with Samaritans, and they had challenges with each other. And what were the questions asked? Well, who's going to be the greatest? The one time when the mom comes and says, which one of my boys is going to be on your left and your right? It's like all,
Dynamics have always been there.
family dynamics. But yet, what did he do? Just what you were saying. It's like he said, no, I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you. And even when he had, as best we understand when we read the gospel, this kind of special relationship with the three, with Peter and John and James, but the reality is he loved them and he demonstrated that love to them. The thought that in John chapter, I think it's 13, when he's washing the disciples' feet, and Judas. I mean, the author clearly in John, he even puts Judas, he mentions him out. He was there when Jesus is washing the stuff off of his feet. And you can't imagine how hurtful and painful that is, but yet he was doing what your example, what the example you're giving. It's like, no, I'm not going to force someone to be that. I'm going to bend. I'm going to love. I am going to express that love, that Christ-like love to those that might even be more challenging within the family dynamic.
And I think you have answered some of the questions that I had some friends write in today. How do you deal with family members that don't necessarily get along really well, or you don't get along with them very well? And I think the message that I'm hearing clearly is communication, especially communication before the event happens, leading up on those expectations, and just, as believers, taking the high road all the time.
Preparation for what might come. And that way you're not going to just be reacting, you'll have a good response. One of the things when you're bringing this up, we have to keep forgiveness alive in our own hearts. Things are going to happen. And when they do, my take on that is, okay, you say you've forgiven this person, whether it's a spouse, a child, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a parent. Will you bake them a cherry pie and just go take it to them? Will you bake them something? Will you make them something special to prove that you are going to reach out to them? And that has been something that's stuck with me for a long time, is if you say you forgive, put an action behind it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do we, one of our viewers, Roxy, she just commented, she said, boundaries are great. And the thing I like about the fact that when you're talking and I'm seeing that comment come up on the screen at the same time is because, Roxy, you can tell your own story there, Roxy, if you have any comments or in that, but she not only has a unique family dynamic because she married a husband from another country. And she's lived in that country. And I know, Maxine, you've dealt with that with your daughter in different cultures, living in Italy and that. And so this idea of boundaries, any comments or insight you would have? And of course, Roxy, if you have anything out there, you can give comments on this too. But how you navigate that on an international level. Because you know what I mean? And expectations around that with different cultures, because you do have to establish boundaries that are healthy, because you could establish boundaries that are unhealthy, right? Because they are all about me and they're all about my expectations. So I'm going to develop boundaries around those, and you're going to do exactly what I want to do. So any insight on that?
Well, yes, actually, because I studied boundaries years ago. There's a wonderful book called Boundaries out there, and there's a workbook that goes
by
with
Cloud.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's wonderful. But if we don't have any boundaries, we'll fall for anybody's, we'll be pulled here, we'll be pulled there, and it won't do us any good. So years ago in our family, I had to send out a boundaries letter to some of the children who should have stopped doing some of the things that were going on. They're plenty old enough, and the insult cycles needed to stop. And I just pretty much told them we were not going to live that way. We were not going to entertain that kind of conversation any longer. We loved them, but this was going to be when they wanted to communicate, there would be respect shown. And so I sent that out. And one of the things that I've done as well is know your foundational core values. Those help you set boundaries that are good for you and don't overstep what your values are and your walk with the Lord. So if the Lord says, you have an agreement with the Lord, or the Lord with you based on his word, he says, speak the truth. You don't throw out people, you speak the truth anyway, and say, I love you, but I cannot stand I can't stand beside you in your thoughts on this subject because the Lord tells me the opposite.
Mhm.
And so that helps me keep boundaries a little clear.
Mhm.
You are not someone else's garbage dump. You are a person who should be respected, but when you're not, quickly forgive and stick to your boundaries. You don't have to cave in on your boundaries because someone else is getting angry or elevating their voice or going off with a silent treatment. Whatever the boundary is, you can, still love that person, but take a time apart for that to simmer down, perhaps. But your boundaries, they need to be within a realm of reality of, of what God is in agreement with. Because when boundaries get outside of God's will for you, then I believe consequences will come back on you that you'll have to deal with.
Yeah, that's good. We only have a couple minutes left. It's hard to believe. It just goes so fast. But let me ask you this, Maxine. Any practical steps that you would want to just in a minute or two just say, here's some ways that you can develop those boundaries, and formulate those as well as communicate those. You talked about a boundaries letter, which obviously you hope, you don't have to send out, right? All the time, but you again did what you're talking about. You wrote it down, and being a writer, of course, that's, you're going to do it right now. But I mean, talk to me a little bit about practically, because I bet there's a lot of people out there that are like, okay, I can set my own boundaries or my own based on my own expectations, but how do I come to an agreement on collective boundaries, especially when there's different cultures and different family dynamics outside of that? So
I'm not so sure you come to collective boundaries, John.
Okay,
I
good.
think they have to be personal boundaries. You and Jennifer could have boundaries that the family respects, but as far as making a collective whole family boundary,
Right, good.
since everyone's so individualistic, we form our own ideas of how we want to live and what works for us and what does not. But there are some things going on in the world today that simply are outside the boundaries of what God deems feasible and under his authority.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to draw the line on some of those things. I don't throw the people out. Jesus never threw the people out. You
Right.
mentioned that already. He turned the tables over, but he didn't throw the people out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
So we sometimes have to do that. And that's just part of the tough love piece that comes into our lives. And the Lord will give us the strength to do it. And as long as you're being respectful and loving in the way you approach it, I think you've made it a boundary that maybe they will admire and maybe want to adopt for themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you train people how to treat you.
Yeah, that's good.
You really
Yeah.
do. And if you're going to put up with anything and everything, they will keep just dishing it out to you, and it won't help you, and it won't make your days happier, and it won't make the holidays any better. So.
Right. No, that's good. And because the collective boundary is formed by a clear and loving understanding of your own boundaries. Because when you've got them, because someone else's is a different boundary. So there's space out there. There's space that no one's in because you're comfortable and motivated by love to have your own boundaries. And so I like that. I think that's important for us, to remember. It's not like, because like the boundary letter, or things like that. It's not going, it's like, okay, now here's the rules to the game. Here's the, but it's like, no, here are the boundaries that we have. Here's what we have. We're not going to impress those on you to say you have to have them, but whether they're cultural or spiritual or, whatever that is, there's kind of a value-centered boundary, that we've done. Right. So that's good. No, I like that a lot. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Well, let me ask this. You got just in 1 or 2 minutes, this is the last thing I want to ask you. Just as you're thinking of the holidays, as you're thinking of the collective X amount of years, which I have not announced how many years that is, of experience. But I'll give everyone a hint. It's more than 60. Cause I know she looks about 60, and so she's over 60. Okay.
Very kind. Thank you.
What's that?
That's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah, it's true. So, but just in 1 or 2 minutes, anything just coming to your mind as you're heading into the holidays, if you had, just even your own kids or your some friends, when you say, hey, remember this as you're going into the holidays, when you're thinking of your family, remember this, what would it be?
Well, to me, what's come to my mind is remembering the real reason for the season. We don't need to get caught up in such a big hustle that we forget. It's really all about Christ's birth. It's about the celebration of that, about maybe giving to others more than we want for ourselves, teaching our children the value of giving instead of taking. I think there's a balance to that needs to be touched upon, and teaching them the story of Christ's birth, the story of why those shepherds went running off to see the baby in the manger, why they really were so excited they went and told other people about it after they'd seen him. And there's an excitement about the holiday season, but we've commercialized it so much. And I would say don't venture into this season and wipe out your family's budget. It's not a good thing. Keep it simpler if it stays in line with your budget. And even if others are begging for things, work toward delayed gratification and maybe some participation from the person who wants something that's outside of the boundaries of what the financial picture can allow. So a lot of people go into such debt just to get their children everything they want.
Right.
That's on their list, and at the expense of having to then try to catch up with their bills. And the economy is tough. The prices are higher right now. Everything is experiencing inflation, and we don't have to, blow up our budgets. And
That's
I think
good.
that's a good reminder.
Yeah, that's a rough way to start the year when you've already blown
for
your
sure.
budget, and it's a stressful way to get started.
But otherwise, have a very Merry Christmas.
That's
because it's
it.
a happy season.
It is a happy season. And you know what? She mentioned, of course, you'll see she even has insights on finances, which I want to remind you as we wrap up our time. We're going a little later tonight because we started late, by the way, just going a couple minutes late. Don't panic. We're not going to leave out dad jokes because we have some good dad jokes to send you into the holiday season with. But I just want to remind you that you can go to Rebuilding Families. You can connect with Maxine there, and you can get resources that are there for you. Some of the things that we're talking about tonight are legitimately, the books are there. Even is it $1 at a time? Rebuilding Families, $1 at a time. Isn't that the name of the one?
That's the financial one. That's the one we did with Charlie. His career was the CPA and the financial investments and lots of stuff like that. So
he would be so happy though that you were mentioning even now you were talking about stewardship even during the holidays. So
especially during the holidays.
especially during the holidays. So I just want to remind people that that's a great resource. They're there for you, and we just want to make sure that you know how to get a hold of them. And Maxine, it is a privilege again to just have you with us. And I just think it's terrible that we haven't been with you face to face in way too long. But this is second best. Yeah. And thanks for sharing your time with others as well. And we'll look forward in 2023 to be able to connect with you absolutely in person. And we just want you to know, and I want to encourage our listeners as well, that we'll be praying, as we heard tonight, for Jerry, and a very special man. And Jennifer and I will specifically be praying for both of you during this holiday season as we head out to New Zealand. We pray for you guys often anyway, but that will be a reminder for us for sure. Okay? So we'll be doing that. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be with you two tonight and with your audience.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Max.
Merry, happy, blessed Christmas.
All right, friend. And we'll be off here, and just if you can hang on for another 2 minutes, great. If you can't, we understand. But we have got to get through the end, and if we don't do dad jokes, we just get hate mail. So we got to get them done. So we'll be right back in just a few minutes. But thanks, Maxine, so much.
You're welcome.
All right, you guys. Well, it has just been so fun to be with you and with Maxine. We're sorry we didn't get to a lot of questions, but I just want you to know we called out to a lot of people ahead of time today Jennifer sent some texts out and just asked about questions. So we tried, we kind of went.
We touched on several.
Yeah, several of the
didn't quite get all
questions.
of them, but that's okay.
But we're just glad that we could be able to be with Maxine and glean from her life experience and professional experience. So it's wonderful. And so thank you again for being with us tonight.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to do our dad jokes. So I'll let Jennifer go first.
We're doing snowman jokes tonight.
Oh, don't let it out of the bag. Don't tell them. All right.
What do you call a snowman with a six-pack? You call him an abdominal snowman.
Okay, not bad. That's pretty good. I think that's good. That's good. All right. Hey, what did the snowman say to the other snowman?
I don't know.
Hey, do you smell carrots? That is good. Come on. That is a classic. You can put that one around your holiday table. Either of those. Do you smell carrots?
Do you smell carrots?
I like that. So good. All right. Hey, listen, thanks so much for interacting with us tonight on our live stream. Or if you're listening on the restream, we created this venue to provide a practical and interactive way to help you and others live out the gospel.
So if you love our show and you stand with us and our mission, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, and consider giving a tax-deductible donation to Eternal Impact.
So until next time, friends, and that is in 2 weeks from tonight, if you're live, 2 weeks from New Zealand, we will be going live. We genuinely pray that you, that's right, you have the joy of life and the gift of His grace, and that it will be tangible in and through you as you live it out. So have a great week. We love you guys. See you next time.
Bye.